All right, I'm always going off about how champagne yeast is not the thing to brew with. Today, I'm going to put my opinion to the test. Hi, I'm Brian.
I'm Derica, and today is the epic battle between Brian's most despised yeast strains.
No. I like the Lalvin K1 V1116. We use this in
that's true.
Viking Blood.
That's true.
This and this. This is Lalvin K1 V1116. This is champagne yeast, EC1118. You're probably wondering, why do I even own this? The best use that I have found for this is, oh, my fermentation got stuck. Well, this will work. This one and this one are both 18% tolerance yeasts, which means on the surface they should be really similar. I'm going to doubt that, but have I ever actually done a side-by-side comparison? Nope, not till today. So,
Ruined it for me.
what?
I was going to make a thing.
What's your thing?
I was going to go, we're testing it today, and you're just like, we're doing it today. It's okay.
We can start over.
It's fine.
Are you sure?
We just have a blooper now, so it's fine.
I might leave that in.
No, this is going to go at the end.
Okay. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to make an elderberry wine. And why elderberry wine? Because we have it. That's why. We have this wonderful Vintner's Best elderberry wine base that you might remember from a previous video. But there's a reason I'm using this, because this is going to be a fairly high gravity must, as in pretty high. And this stuff already has DAP, diammonium phosphate. It has stuff in it, things that I don't really like to use, but things that do help those higher gravity musts do their job best. So
to start off, everything that you see here has been sanitized.
Except for the packets of yeast. We didn't actually sanitize those. Oh, we didn't.
In Turbos, the red bucket of sanitization! Da, da, da! Yes, Turbos got extra fanfare because of Brian's little snarky comment about not sanitizing the yeast.
Yeah.
Ha!
So anyway, as we always do when we're starting off, what we're going to do is hydrate our yeast. So I have 2 self-stirring cups, equal in dignity, except that that one has a crack in it because it got dropped. But it's okay, because it'll still work. The part that we need is at the bottom. I'm just going to hydrate in water today. Why? Because it's too much to figure out how much of the elderberry concentrate to use. Now, something you might remember is that elderberry concentrate goes to a 1.077 gravity when it's mixed with a 1 to 4 part ratio, meaning 1 part elderberry concentrate to 4 parts water. I don't really want that. I want close to double. So what we're going to do is use almost a 1 to 2 ratio. It's actually just a little bit less than 1 to 2 parts of water. That way I'm hoping for like a 1.4 to 1.5 starting gravity, giving us a very high gravity and something for these two powerhouse 18% yeast to work on. But the next step, you're going to see me do something you will never, ever, ever see me do again. Just to make this test as good as possible, give both of these yeasts the best chance possible, I am using an entire packet of each of them for each half gallon that I'm making. That was adorable, by the way. And why am I doing that? Well, I just want to give the colony the best possible chance. That way, in our unscientific test, we're giving it everything just the best chance it can have. Making sure that the only real variable here, the only real issue that we might have, is in the differences of the yeast. That's it. So I put K1 here, EC over here. We're just going to say K1 and EC. Or I could say the good yeast and the champagne yeast. I'm just dumping them both in, roughly the same amounts of water. I'll even stir them the same, because somebody will give me heck about that. And again, not a starter, just hydrating the yeast. Just sort of getting them woken up a little bit, acclimated to their environment just slightly, even though their environment's going to change drastically in just a few moments. I'm going to put them out by their things so that we don't get them mixed up, because that would be bad and would mess up the entire video. So, the next step is the messy bit. This is where I'm going to make one must, and I'm going to use the elderberry. So all I need to do is, it's really pretty simple. I put this in front of me for no reason, apparently. I'm going to measure out 4 cups of this stuff. Now, if you didn't see the video where we talked about this once before, I'm going to read through the ingredients in this. Had I known what was in this, I might not have actually purchased it. But I saw elderberry and went, ooh, we have to do that. So we have this
Since
stuff.
then, we have purchased an elderberry tree.
So we'll have our own damn elderberries, and we don't have to worry about that next year. Anyway, or 2 years or 3, whenever. It's this tall.
It's weed.
Yeah. Anyway, the ingredients are corn syrup, which it's fermentable corn syrup. And somebody mistook what I said in the last video. I was more disappointed that this wasn't sugars from elderberries than it was that it was corn syrup. Fermentable corn syrup is okay. It's the same thing as regular sugar. It's all the same thing. But I kind of wanted the sugars to come from the elderberries, which they don't. If this only gets to a 1077, what the heck is in here? Well, I'm about to tell you.
Corn syrup.
Apple, pear, and elderberry and grape juice. So that means the elderberry is third on the list, meaning this is mostly apple and pear with a little bit of grape juice in there. Concentrates, by the way. Water, citric acid, which not a problem. Citric acid is just vitamin C. A lot of the time it's just kept for the color, things like that, just to keep it a little fresher. Don't worry about that. Natural flavors. See, that one scares the heck out of me, because what's a natural flavor? Wouldn't it just be the natural flavors of the natural berries? But, you know, we have to put chemicals in and call it natural flavors. And then, here we go. You ready for it? Diammonium phosphate. Now, I have a problem with diammonium phosphate, and it is this. It has not been 100% proven. It has not been 100% linked, but it is somewhat linked to causing cancer. Some people believe it does. Other tests say it doesn't. If something could potentially be cancerous, I tend to avoid it. However, for the sake of science, we will be taking that risk today. So I'm going to measure out 4 cups. You knew I had to get a rant in there somewhere. By the way, this stuff would be awesome on pancakes. I think we said this last time too. So I'm measuring out 4 cups. We have 10 cups of water, which some of it's in the hydration of the yeast. There we go. This stuff actually pours quite nicely. That's probably the only thing I really like about it. Other than the way it tastes. It tastes awesome. I just don't trust it. And now we mix. I have to get all of this into here. Wish me luck.
Do you want this?
Yes. And because we paid for it, I'm not wasting any of this. Gotta get all that DAP in you. Now, some of you probably know I have a real, very strong dislike for champagne yeast. And here is why. I'm going to tell you what champagne yeast is for and what it's not for. Let me finish this first. You just give this a mix. Okay, while I'm stirring this up. Champagne yeast is used for the champenois, I might be pronouncing it wrong, method of making champagne. Or basically, they re-ferment after the wine is done. So in other words, they make the wine. It's all done. Everything's good. They put it in a bottle. Then they actually re-ferment it with champagne yeast just to make it extra bubbly. They don't actually make the wine with champagne yeast. That's why it's called champagne yeast. It's just there to make bubbles. That is what it does best. Notice I didn't say anything about flavor, because that's not what it does. It will ferment anything. It works on anything because it's made to work in a relatively alcoholic environment. It has a very high alcohol tolerance. It's made to just munch through any little bit of sugar that might be left because it usually gets the scraps. Are you seeing where I'm going with this? It's not made to make good brews. Now, I know somebody, and a lot of people probably, I think I'm done with this now. Wait, one drop. There we go.
It's all integrated,
Yep.
stirred.
It stirs up nicely. It's made to do this. Now, somebody lots of people probably are going to rail against everything that I just said and say, I've been doing it this way for years and it works out great and it's awesome. You know what? If you like it, please, by all means, go for it. But before you tell me that it's the best yeast to use for brewing, try something else and tell me if you still feel that way. That's why I'm doing this test today. Because a lot of people have challenged me with it. A lot of people have, not given me a hard time. I mean, I'm not really worried about it. I know it's not a good yeast, so I'm not really concerned. But I want to prove the point, and that's where I figured, you know what? Let's do the test. I've never actually done it side by side, but I've never had an EC1118 come out good tasting. So, they both might taste horrible, actually. You never know. So, we have our must. Everything is equal about these two jars, pretty much. Everything is equal about this. I'm just going to split it between the two jars. Here we go. This could be the messy part. And there we go. Pretty much as equal as it's going to be. You probably noticed I haven't taken readings yet. I'm going to wait till we pitch our yeast in just for any little slight differences. That way they each have their own reading rather than saying, oh, it's this. So that is actually the next step because these are now equal as far as we know, right? Everything about them, it's the same batch of must put into the same size container, filled to the same amount. Over here we have the K1 V1116 version of the yeast mixed into water, and it started actually foaming a little bit. And I'm going to dump that right in. And there we go. Now that's in. Then we have champagne yeast. By the way, if someone was curious as to why I'm doing half-gallon batches, it's because I expect one of these to taste okay and the other one not so much. And I really didn't want to waste a whole gallon on it. That's the truth. So I'm stirring this up. One thing I could see right off the bat is that the K1V really didn't mix well. It's like clumped. Pause for fermenter identification. I'm just gonna pour the champagne yeast into the must, which it pains me to do that, just so you're aware. Now, I should give these a little bit of a stir. We have a sanitized spoon here. It's been sitting here. Basically, that towel is loaded with sanitizer at this point, just so you're aware. So I'm going to stir this up. I want to see if I can break up some of those yeasts, because that's just crazy. You might notice that I'm taking the reading after pitching the yeast. We've had this come up a couple of times. The reason I take readings after pitching the yeast is because if I don't, that little bit of extra will actually change the gravity sometimes. And we want to be as close to accurate as possible. Obviously, this is not absolute perfection because in order to do that, we'd have to have a lab environment, use a lab. We'd have to be scientists with a bunch of letters after our name. And I'm just a home brewer, so we don't worry about that. But what I am going to do next is take a couple of readings and then we can notate those and see where everybody's going along the way. That was sanitizer blowing out of that, by the way. So we have our baster, graduated cylinder, and I'm going to test the K1 V116 version first. Now, as much as I might rail about the diammonium phosphate in this stuff, it actually smells really good. I mean, it's a nice combo. We did the mead versus wine video using this too, and it just, while we're making it, we're both like, yeah, this is like amazingly smelling.
Which is a happy accident on our part because we can use the wine we used in that as a control versus these two. Because the yeast we used in that one was D47, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
1.110. Okay, so it's not a super high gravity must. That's okay. These are both going to go dry. That, to me, gives an even better indication of what they're going to really be like then. Now, another thing that comes up all the time is, should I throw this away or should I put this back in? Well, in the beginning stages of fermentation, you want oxygenation. You want to add oxygen to your yeast colony to give it the best chance it possibly has to build up and grow. And then you want to make sure there's no oxygen added. So absolutely, go ahead, pour it back in. I do. I don't throw it away. I'm putting a lid on it just because that way nothing else gets in there that we don't want getting in.
So if you see me leaning over to this side, that is because
Bistro.
off of the stage right?
Camera left, stage right.
Okay. Is Turbos, the red bucket of sanitization. So we're re-sanitizing all of this stuff before introducing it into the other thing. Yeah.
In case I haven't mentioned it on camera, I have the most awesome wife ever. True story. Oh, what do you know? They came out the same, 1.110. Now, well, you might be thinking, but that's a lot lower gravity than you really wanted. Yeah, it is a little bit. But, see, this is the thing. I didn't want to use up all the stuff that I had. I wanted to give this stuff a fair shake. I didn't really want it to come out super sweet because sweetness can mask a lot of flavor differences. So I thought having them both come out a little bit on the dry side, which they still might not. They still might come out slightly sweet, you never know. I thought that might be an even better way. And yeah, I made that up as I went along, and it's okay. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
So now I have to prepare the airlocks.
All right, so we have our lids on. Next comes these. You know what these are, right? These are airlocks. These are the S-type airlocks. These are my favorite kind. What I actually do is I have 3-piece airlocks and S airlocks. And I use the S airlocks for new brews, and I put secondary fermentations in with the 3-piece. That way I can tell the difference, and I just don't like the 3-piece ones. But anyway, the way these work, I'm just going to stick this in, is air goes, the CO2 being produced by these brews pushes up into the water, comes down, comes out the top. Nothing can go back in. It's like a one-way valve. It looks like the trap in your sink or your toilet. That way, good stuff goes, or bad stuff goes out. Nothing bad comes back in, and that way you don't explode your brews. There's a lot of other methods of airlock type sort of things out there, not to be mentioned, some of them. And then there's balloons. The reason I don't like those, if they come off, it totally can ruin your brew. So, to me, it's just, they're $2. Not much of a risk to try and get. I know, some parts of the world, they're very difficult to get. Some people have a lot of trouble trying to find them. I understand. If it's all you got, use a balloon. But if you have any other way of doing it, get an airlock. I'd actually even rather see you just use a piece of silicone tubing going into like a mason jar with sanitizer water in it. That is an airlock, and that's safer than a balloon at the end of the day. That's my cue to stop babbling. So these 2 brews are going to go under the desk of fermentation or in the closet of extra fermentation or somewhere in this house because we're starting to run out of space for this stuff. And in about a month, we'll come back and show you the results.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on City Steady.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bloopers. We have bloopers.
We have bloopers.
Awesome. We already have bloopers.